open to the public 6 days a week out of 7 days. Not all day, but at least 2-3 hours, which most of the Western Pennsylvania Historical Societies can't do because they don't have enough volunteers. But we fortunately have a nice group of volunteers that we're able to be open that much for people to come in. And we've been very busy lately. Now with our speaker series, we do not charge admission because we're just happy to get the people who have never been in our building in here and see what we have here. But we do have a donation box out on the counter. If you see fit that would like to make a donation, we would greatly appreciate it. This old building takes a lot of money to keep it going. We just put a new roof on last year that we saved for many, many years to raise enough money to put that roof on. So we always are very grateful for any donations you can give us. And also, I laid out a stack of membership forms also. If you're not a member and would like to be a member, it's very reasonably priced, and you get newsletters with great historical stories in it. And I would love you to have more members join us also. So without talking any more longer, when we get to the main event here, I've known Dave a long time. Our time goes way back to Slippery Rock University. We served on the Slippery Rock University Foundation Board at the same time. And Dave and David and Nathan when we go into county markets. So I'm going to turn the program over to Dave.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you for inviting me. It's a privilege to be here. And special thanks to John Horn with his technology. Some photographs that I had that I was going to have to pass around. He was able to put them in his computer and we'll be able to look at them on the big screen. If you want to walk around while I'm doing my program, you don't have to wait till afterwards. I feel like with the history of this town and the borough, and I got a brief look around. Kathy gave me a tour, and it dates back to like 1780. So I think that County Market, we have a small piece of that, but we do have a significant celebration this year. We're going to celebrate the 40th year anniversary of the store in July when it opened. I'm very pleased that that's happened. It's kind of exceptional when it comes to independence to last that long. My wife Vicki and I retired in 2020, so now my son David and his wife own it. And that's why it's still here and it's still healthy. I think that infusion of the young blood and the young ideas is essential to any organization. So I'm going to start out a little bit and talk about how I got involved in the grocery business. I grew up in the South Hills of Pittsburgh, the borough of West Mifflin, and at that time in the 50s and 60s, there were two national chains, grocery chains, A&P and Kroger. And A&P by 1969 was by far the largest grocery retailer in the country. And the reason I mentioned that, at some point later on in my talk, they actually went out of business. There was another chain retailer that was more regional, Thoroughfare Markets, and they had stores in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia. And then there was a locally owned chain that at the time was rather insignificant, and I know you'll all recognize the name, Giant Eagle. And they're the only one of the four that's still operating stores, are still in business. And I think a lot of that's due to the fact that it was family owned and operated. Maybe not quite as much today as it was at one time, but I give them a lot of credit because again, in the 60s, their stores didn't show you very much, but obviously they made a lot of adjustments and acclimated and improved things. 1965, we saw some independents come into the area, Foodland and Shop and Save. think probably everybody here has heard those names at one time or another. I worked at that thoroughfare store for my last 2 years of high school, and my first 2 years that I went to Penn State, because I went to McKeesport campus and I was able to keep that job. And a lot of the things that I learned as far as discipline at that time, I practiced well into my career. We had to carry a wet rag because the shelves were wood and they got dirty and dusty, so we were to clean the shelves. We also had to carry a roll of Scotch tape because at that time the canned goods were steel and the labels didn't stick to them. So you'd open the box and maybe 6 out of the 24 the labels were off. And it was very rigid as how things were done. But the other thing that really stayed with me is how there was such a great relationship in that store. Everybody got along. You go into that store on your day off, everybody was buddies, and I was only there for 4 years. But it just left an impression on me that I carried over to when I got my own store. You work your whole life, you should enjoy what you do. If you don't, do something else. I can't tell you how many times I said to somebody, not everybody's meant to work in a grocery store. Although it is warm in the winter and cold in the summer. So, upon my graduation from college, I got hired by a small wholesaler that was in McKeesport, Pennsylvania, by the name of Potter McHugh. And at the time, they supplied a lot of cash and carry stores and some supermarkets that went under the Super Dollar banner. So they hired me to be an assistant manager. And I think I was there for about a month. And there was an armed robbery. They took the manager at gunpoint. And when he came back in, he said, "I quit," and he threw me the keys. So I got promoted. And I think I was only the manager there. It was less than a year, and they asked me if I'd like to come inside the office and be a buyer. And I said, "Sure, I'll be glad to learn something new." In 1976, they offered me a store in Millville. And I didn't really like the area. I wasn't familiar with it. It had a bad reputation, but I knew if I said no, I wouldn't get another chance. So I took it. And there I experienced an armed robbery 3 times. So I was there from 76 until 84 when the opportunity in Grove City was presented. And when employees complain about customers or something bad that happened, I said, "Have you ever had a gun held on you?" Going from Millville to Grove City was analogous to going from hell to heaven. This was a great town to run a business. Very wonderful town, and a great area to raise the family, a great community to become involved in, whether it was a church or sponsor a Little League team, Chamber of Commerce, Rotary, Kathy mentioned the Slippery Rock Foundation. It's just, that's what's nice about a small town. And then for myself personally, you know, I see so many people. We average about 20,000 customers a week. So I'm not going to tell you I didn't know everybody's name, but you get to recognize the faces. And then the kids, and then some of the children work for you. And I can remember one woman, her 2 boys were twins. And she kept them on a leash, because you know what 2-year-olds will do. And I remember saying to her, "When your boys are old enough to work, I'm going to retire." Well, they both ended up working for me, and I worked a lot longer after them. It was just an example of memories and why it's so much fun to be in a town like this. The Pittsburgh market was very unique in the whole country. I mentioned previously the chains that were here. Well, in the early 70s, A&P closed their stores in the Pittsburgh market and pulled out of the area. And ultimately, by 2016, A&P went completely out of business in the whole country. Thoroughfare, who I worked for, closed all of their stores. And Kroger started to close their stores in the Pittsburgh market in '82. And then what was called the Northern Tier, which is what we're in, they were all closed by 1984. So my point is, you had all these empty facilities, all these empty grocery stores, and a landlord that owns the building. And the equipment isn't even worth half of what it was paid for. So it was a lot easier to be able to go into a business like that. So the wholesaler at the time that supplied the Shop and Saves was called Charlie Brothers. And they were three brothers with the last name of Charlie. And they put a lot of their operators in business with a handshake. Well, I wasn't that lucky. They wanted $1 million by the time I came around. So what happened was they made me an offer. They said, we have a store in Grove City, and we'll hire you to run it as the manager. And then we'll let you buy it. Well, I wasn't crazy about that at the time because I'd already owned my own store for 8 years. But having said that, I didn't have the risk, plus I didn't have to pick my family up and move right away. I said, I'm gonna stay in Ellison Park, that's where we live. We can drive back and forth to Grove City. My 12-hour days turned into 14-hour days, but it was okay, it was something that we could do. They held to their promise, and they sold me the store. And what is that? Somebody's So, as I mentioned, Charlie Brothers. So there were 20 Krogers in this northern tier that became county markets. I mean, some of you that are right in the area probably would have recognized there was one in Meadville, there was one in Hermitage, there was one in Clearfield, Punxsutawney, and we were in Grove City. So in May of 1984, right after I'd sold my store, I came up here and we had to transform the Kroger into the county market contact. So what that meant was taking a lot of equipment out of it, because that store was actually ahead of its time. They had a pharmacy in that store, they had a big floral department, they had a huge appliance department, they even sold televisions. But when they moved from the original Kroger that was down by the railroad tracks, my son had to save it for a little while, and they moved to the location that we're at now, the store actually did less business. So I had to take all that equipment out. I filled 2 tractor trailers with equipment. Plus, there was a lot of product like Kroger's own label, and then some things that our warehouse didn't carry, so we wouldn't carry it. So we had it all out on the sidewalk. I have a picture of Vicky out on the sidewalk with a cash register and bringing out the product. And I think we got rid of almost all of it. What we didn't sell, we gave to the food bank. So we also had to change all the decor. That was the first time I got to meet Tony Spatera and his son Dan. I'm not sure in 1984 if Dan was actually painted yet, but they painted the store and they ended up doing it 3 more times since we're here. We had to turn the aisles. Most stores, when you walk into them, the aisles are perpendicular. They run front to back. And that's what most people are accustomed to. Well, for us to have the warehouse racking in the store, if anybody of you remember it, I had to turn all the gondolas the other way so that they went from left to right. And then we assembled the racking, and the 8-foot sections of shelving would slide underneath it. So I'm going to show you some pictures. Okay, that's the building, and I'll make a point of underneath the word market, total discount foods. Well, that was part of the concept. Mass merchandised, price emphasized. And then next to that, open 24 hours. That was another thing that was part of the concept. We have a night crew, we stocked at night. Why not have one cashier? There was always something for that cashier to do, so we stayed open at night. The deli bakery sign, that was from Kroger. So we didn't have to take that down. And, you know, when I started in the business, the stores didn't have a deli and a bakery. Most of them didn't have any kind of a cosmetic department, pharmacy department, health and beauty aids department. You had to buy all those things at a drugstore. There was still home delivery of bread and milk, so we didn't carry a lot of bread and milk. Some of you might remember those little metal containers on the front porch where the milkman put the glass bottle of milk in it. So we didn't have any of that in the store. So my point is that stores in the 60s carried about 5,000 items. Today we have well over 50,000 items. And the deli, bakery, and the perimeter departments were all part of it. That's yours truly there. I unlocked the door. Still have my hair. So, again, the major remodel that we did in 2012, you used to come into the store and then you had to make a 90-degree turn and come in another set of doors. And then there was an outside canopy. I'll show you one of the, well, we'll just go through it. It's one here. No. No, the first one. There. So this area right here, where that canopy is, when we remodeled in 12, that was all enclosed, and those, this is a little hazy here, but this was pallets of a water softener that we kept outside, and we used to sell an awful lot of it. Again, it was just a concept of mass merchandise and price emphasized. We didn't make much money on that, but we bought it right from Tri-State, so we got a good cost on it. So that remodel, we enclosed all of that, and that made a big difference, just coming directly in on either side.
Dave,
Yes?
how'd you get a picture with so few cars in front of the store?
It wasn't open yet. That was just workers, so, you know, we put the little flags up and then the banner that said grand opening, and notice there's no potholes or any patches. Because again, you know, the store was only open for about 18 months when Kroger left, so. These are all cigarettes. At the time, we probably sold about 1,000 cartons a week. I think for everybody's good, for good health, maybe it's even 100 now like that. And then this is from our friends at George Howe. We've been partners with them for a long time, 40 years. And that door right there, I think the reason I included this picture, that door goes to the upstairs offices. So over the years, this whole area was remodeled at least 3 times. Okay, this is the dairy, and these were, all the refrigeration equipment was left from Kroger. We didn't have to replace any of it. It was all in good shape. So they just had these small, these are called bumpers, but ultimately we replaced that with a large coffee case. And then this is where the ice cream was. And then again, with one of the remodels, we moved the ice cream into the center of the store. So I mentioned about mass merchandise and price emphasized. I don't know if you can make this out right there, but that's Purex bleach. It was 59 cents. I won't tell you how much bleach is today. So one of the ways that we were able to lower our retails because we lowered the cost was I was able to buy almost all of our paper direct from the manufacturers, and then some of the grocery manufacturers like Campbell's and Kraft sold us directs too. So again, we eliminated the freight from it going to the warehouse and from the warehouse to us. I included this because of the signage. It was very labor intensive to do that. All those signs, and the black ones with the yellow print, said everyday discount price, and then some of the other pictures, you'll see green signs, and that said green tag special. So this again is that bleach display, and you can see the pallets of the Tide and the rack. So what I did was, if I bought half a truckload of that Tide and I got a reduced cost, rather than being the typical retailer high-low, change from 200 prices every week because of your ad, I'd keep the retail depressed until that was gone. Maybe I'd get down to the last pallet and say, okay, I'm gonna make a little extra money on it, I'd raise it back to regular price. And again, look at this, look at all this signage and then all these handwritten tags, awful lot of time. But guess what, it was worth it because it worked. Okay, I think the reason I took this picture, again, at the time, those are signs at the end of the displays that say juice and cookies. So we had the description and the price on both sides. So we had a big roll-up ladder, and every time we changed the display, you had to get that ladder out, change the description, and change the price. This floor right here, this terracotta tile, it, it probably looks strange, and it did, but that was where the floral department was for Kroger. So that whole area was a different kind of tile, it just kind of segregated it, accented it to the rest of the store. That's the dairy. Stock full. Again, I'll emphasize all of the price tags and signs. Okay, this was the first remodel. I'm gonna digress a little bit here first. This is a list of items that we labeled as shockers. So a shocker was something that maybe 70 to 80% of your customers bought, a high volume item, and we would sell that at or below cost. So this is from 1986. 32 ounce Miracle Whip, 93 cents. Campbell's tomato soup, 15 cents. 12 ounce Spam, 99 cents. 5 pound sugar, 5 pound, it's 4 pound now.
Yeah.
128, 32 ounce Heinz ketchup, 98 cents. Heinz baby food, they don't even pack it anymore, unfortunately, 15 cents. Velveeta 2 pound, $2.59. Pillsbury cake mixes, 58 cents. Contadina tomato sauce, 15 cents. 2 pound powdered brown sugar, 68 cents. Pillsbury 25 pound flour, $2.77. Well, there's no 25 pound flour anymore either. And we used to have a whole pen display of that, like the bleach that I showed you. We probably held about 150 bags on it, and we sold a lot of it. People baked. I guess they don't bake anymore. That's why the bakery does so quick. So again, for comparisons, and maybe I shouldn't even tell you that Miracle Whip that was 93 cents in 1986 is $5.99 now. It's still a shocker. We still lose money on it, but it's $5.99. The sugar that was $1.28, not quite so bad. It's $2.98 now. So again, the price, mass merchandise and price emphasized. So one of the things that I like the best about the county market concept was not having an ad with 200 items in it every week, and then you run out of something. So what do? Rain checks. People were unhappy. Well, we didn't do that. I can remember one of our ads, and unfortunately I didn't save a copy of it. It was a full-page ad with a picture of a strawberry, and it said, first of the season at County Market, California strawberries, and no price, didn't even have a price on it. So this is one that my son had saved. This is from 1990. So it was the deli, featured baked ham, turkey breast, Swiss cheese, and American cheese for $1.88. I don't know what we paid for a Lamont, but probably a little bit less less than that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so our first remodel was in 1992. So we incorporated some of our local talent. I mentioned the Spitera name, well, they got to come back and paint again. Steigerwalds, they did all this cabinetry work throughout the store. I didn't have a picture that showed the warehouse racking at the front of the store, but we had it there also. So we took it out and put shelving in. This is still the front of the store where it wraps around into the produce, so quite a difference. Zingones replaced the floor. So the paint was oak trim and then those signs. And I always liked those signs, and they really made a big difference at the time, but eventually they were out of date. So I'll get to it, we have to remodel again. Okay, I'll apologize for this one, I don't know what I did, but you gotta turn sideways. This is the bulk foods.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's the base, and Steigerwald's made that.
Yeah.
So those small bins are all candy, and then it went in these towers at the top, and it was impressive. And this is something that kind of surprised me. We had a huge bulk department when we opened. I mean, we had big bins with like bulk flour and sugar and peanuts and things like that, birdseed. That all went away with the first remodel, but we still kept it, we still have it now. But it's pretty much all just candy and snacks. Okay, here's the deli in Malta.
Yeah.
And we did expand it, and then David was able to find a manufacturer that made that island case. It was very rare, he had a hard time getting it, but it gave us a lot more room to merchandise cheese, but we still made these little displays and wheeled them out.
Yeah,
We don't
that
have
was
to do
good
that
cheese.
anymore either. Meat department. Again, notice the signage. We got away from the everyday discount signs, but anything that was a special or reduced price was a green tag. Bought this case. I vividly remember this because this was a manufacturer out of Tyler, Texas, and Tyler was the name of the manufacturer. So they, like some other manufacturers, decided to ship some of their labor to Mexico. So I've known this refrigeration man since I had my little store in 1976. And when he got it, it was missing all this trim. Some of the trim here was missing expansion valve, so it wouldn't run. So guess what? They took the manufacturing back to the United States after that. But we replaced that case too, right, Dave?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. There's the dairy. Again, this is before the most recent remodel, so we still just use those little cases. And with time, you can see the yogurt here. And with time, we didn't have near enough space for yogurt, and I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, that picture that I showed you from the last batch of the opening, with all the cigarettes, that's it. Steigerwald's, I mean, Zingones did magic. We still had the cigarettes there, but they made this beautiful oak wooden cabinets. Could have been a library. And then you can barely see on the left side the shelving for the floor. We used to have in the cafe lineup a small rotisserie for the roasted chicken, but it didn't hold that many, it didn't last long. So we bought this case to put it out on the floor, and at least it was, it was self-serve. And the last remodel, we upgraded on that also. Okay, this is as you're coming across the front of the store. This is the cafe right here. So that island bakery case. I remember when we put it in, and again, I'll go back to the 25-pound flour, and people still did their own baking. So I don't know if we sold 50 cakes a week out of that monster. Now, we sell more than that in a bad day, probably. I mentioned Steiger walls again. It goes with the floor. My friend danced with there with the paint. I think that was it, okay. Okay. So, I showed you a lot of equipment that was replaced. I showed you how we used to do our advertising. Well, at some point in time, things change. And the reason for that change was the mass merchandisers like Costco, Target, Walmart, to a lesser degree, it was hard to make an emphasis on price anymore because they were right there with us. It was hard to actually match them. So we had to change. So this was something that my son will be fond to see, because he created this. This was a madness sale. And this was from 2002. Still, you know, the shock of the retail is 2-liter Pepsi, 59 cents, half-gallon ice cream, and when it was still a half-gallon, it isn't anymore. $1. Whole filet, $7.99. I'll emphasize that one, okay? Let me see what else really. Oh, bananas, 19 cents. So this was the first time that we did it, and it was just for one day. So you're not sure how to react, and normally what you do is you buy heavier than what you think you're gonna need, but David will remember. We ran out of fillets by, I think it was 11 o'clock. So again, the infusion of a young blood. He'd gotten did you borrow somebody's truck?
I had a friend meet me at the warehouse and I borrowed someone's truck and got more.
Down to Cisco in Zillion
Yep.
and bought more fillets.
Filet, wholesaling too, yeah.
This was very successful. So ultimately, we got a little bit smarter and started doing it 2 days, and we do 3
Yes.
for a little while, and it was great. It put a lot of stress on the managers because, you know, you had to do all this buying and be prepared for it. But once we went to 3 days, it spread it out, and it wasn't so bad. Well, COVID put an end to this. We just couldn't do it anymore. Since I mentioned with COVID, it actually ended up being an opportunity for county market, and I'll give David, my son, the credit. I'm sure all of you can remember not being able to get pumpkin or flour or yeast or butter, paper products. It was terrible. And a lot of the big corporate places, you probably experienced it, they didn't care. Well, David did whatever he had to. If that meant buy from a manufacturer that made institutional papers, like it was just one roll of toilet paper, or, you know, having to buy from like Cisco or US Foods, he got 25-pound flour, he got institutional yeast, and people didn't care how big it was. They just wanted it. So the word got out. You know, that kind of advertising is the best. I mean, I'd see it, somebody'd show it to me, I don't do Facebook, but somebody would show it to me. Can I work it as pumpkin? I drove 25 miles from Butler to get it. Really? Well, again, it worked, and he made the most out of it. So, the ads, we switched ultimately to item and price ads. There's negatives to it. You run out of things. You have to write rain checks, but I'll go back to my comment about the nice town. People don't get upset here because they know they can bring that thing back whenever, and we're still gonna honor it, because it was always my hobby. Don't let anybody walk out of here mad. No matter what you have to do, don't ever let anybody walk out angry. Give them something free, I don't care. Don't let them walk out angry. But this was actually our 25th anniversary. I won't bore you with reading off some of the details, but what I will mention to you is something else that you can do to make yourself unique or special events. So we always make a special event out of the anniversary sale. So this one, unfortunately, I missed the first 3 days because I had to serve jury duty, federal jury duty. So I missed Buffalo the Clown on Monday. And then we had YMCA did face painting, so that Monday was a kid's day. Tuesday was an ice cream eating contest, and we did that for years, and it was a blast. You know, the kids loved it. Parents loved it too much because they kept pushing it. Kids get in there to have their turn. Wednesday we had a barbecue rib dinner with Guy Hughes. Thursday was all you could eat spaghetti dinner. Friday a chicken barbecue. We did that for years. Were we doing that? Once you okay? Well, it was a pain. My wife found out right away. You had to prepare the chicken the day ahead in the cafe and then take it outside.
Yeah.
We had a hard time keeping up, but we did, and it made people happy. And then we have a car cruise. I already let Randy know when our car cruise is this year. And then something very unique, a Price is Right sweepstakes. We actually gave away a car, 2009 Ford Focus, and Dan Taylor was very helpful with that. I don't think he made any money on the car, but we paid for it. But it was great. People in a small town remember things like that. So the 40th anniversary celebration will be special also. We're going to do the Price is Right again, but we're not giving away a car. Okay, so I mentioned the last remodel was 2012. I give my son a lot of credit. I was going through trying time with my mother at that time. She was in assisted living, and I had to take her to Cleveland Clinic. She ultimately passed, so he did all the work. And I could see right away, he didn't need me. It's great. Just the best way to learn was ordering all the equipment and scheduling it, scheduling the workers. And again, we were able to rely on the local contractor, Thomas Construction. They were terrific. And the hardest thing was enclosing that lobby area that I mentioned earlier, because that was very disruptive to the customers, but it didn't last long. So we, actually David took a customer survey, which was very smart. What would you like to see? And a lot of people responded to it. And a lot of them said, update the store. It's out of date. And you know, they maybe requested some more things in produce, a bigger selection of cheese, some more seafood. I mentioned how our dairy, we didn't have enough space in yogurt, and then all these coffee creamers came out, and we probably carried about 3 or 4 of them, and there's probably 50. So we responded to it. We closed the lobby for the carts, and also gave us some more display space. We added a new case and a deli for cheese. And I know David was really nervous about this. Dad, are people gonna pay $15 a pound for cheese? I don't know, I guess we'll find out. It doesn't seem to matter. They just want it. They want the variety, and it's done terrific. So I mentioned about how we were tight in the dairy department. So we expanded the juice case in the produce, and we moved all the juice that used to be in the dairy, all the orange juice like Tropicana and all the teas, and put it over with the produce. So that gave us all this extra space for the yogurts and the coffee creamers. And I can tell you, in my travels, when I go to Publix in Florida, and they do a terrific job, they don't have the yogurt variety that we do. Again, giving the customer what they want. We expanded the seafood. And we're blessed with the person that we have running that. She should have come tonight, Patty. If any of you ever bought fish and Patty's back there, you'll see what I'm talking about. She's just a wonderful personality. And And you can teach people a lot of things, but you can't teach them that. And then we do special events, I'll burst a little bit here. We do outside seafood sales at Thanksgiving and Christmas. I think Jim's been to a few of those at Christmas. Oh, we replaced the floor again, I almost forgot. And another big thing, we relocated the front office where it should have been all along. Like you check out at the registers and it's right there. Easier for the customers and a lot better for the office personnel. You know, Kroger had it where we had originally put it at the front after you came in, but once we redid that lobby, it gave us a space where we could put that front office where it should be. And then in the cafe, we added meals to go, just replaced that case, and if you haven't seen it, Dave's brother-in-law, RJ, runs that department, and he does a terrific job in it. So for, there's couples with a husband and a wife, both work, you can get your meat, you can get your sides, you can get your starch, you can get your dessert, you're all ready to go. Okay, I went through the past and the current. What about the future? Well, he's sitting in the back room. My grandson, Nathan, and I told him, I'm sure you remember, Nate, if you want to come into the business, I'd love it. I think that would be great. But if you don't come in, that's okay too. Well, he decided he liked it. And he's both feet in it all the time, very devoted to it. And that's the key, again, I'll repeat myself, the young blood, you have to bring that in. So one of the things that I would always say as far as change was that you have to be flexible and you have to find new ways. And I think the majority of the time I always did that. The only thing that sticks out of my mind where I refused to was self-checkouts. I'm like, no, a little town, we're not doing it. Somebody has a $200 cartload of groceries and they didn't get waited on in the deli and they haven't want to smile at them back there. They're not gonna have any contact with a cashier. So we didn't, but then the COVID changed that too. It was just difficult to have enough cashiers. A lot of people were frightened, quit. I thought our meat manager was gonna have a nervous breakdown, so David started out with, was it 2?
3.
3? And when he told me how well they were doing, and it was even, people told it was me that used them, I said, well, guess what, I'm not using it. So, and you expanded it to 6. So there's been good acceptance, and I'm sure all of you have read a lot of negativity about them in the big stores. There's a lot of theft, but the problem is they're not governed, they're not managed. You have to have an employee there to assist and to let people know somebody's paying attention. So even though I was against it and I understood why we had to change, and for now we're okay. I mean, the future, I don't know. I mean, I have lived through having to price mark everything and mechanical registers that sometimes you had to crank them, and unloading a truck a case at a time as opposed to a 53-foot trailer with pallets. And I actually got to, when I was like 18-year-old, order one of the owls. We wrote it in a book and then you mail it to the warehouse and you got the truck 3 days later. And now we have a little computer with a wand on it, the laser that scans the tag, and we get the truck that night. So I know there'll be more technology and we'll adapt to it. I know there'll be new items, we'll accommodate that. And there'll be changes with staffing and we'll always take care of that. Thank you for listening. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. When the Rite Aid moved out of the space next to you, did you consider getting into that?
Well, we would have, but we got informed of it too late. We'd already started the remodel, and I mean, we probably could have used the space. I think Dave would agree with me, frankly, I don't think that we need it now, but we probably would have taken it. Am I right on that? When Gumbert let us know, we'd already started to work on
We
it.
told them we wanted it for years, and then when we did their remodel, like 6 months in, they're like, hey, we can get you that space. I'm like, I got everything in the space I need, so
Yeah,
sorry.
you already ordered equipment, and I don't know if you'd actually started the physical construction. But, you know, not having enough space, not having a big enough freezer, not having a big enough walk-in cooler, that's a good problem. When all of a sudden you have a freezer and it's only half full and then it has to work harder, that's a problem. So I'm sure Dave would have made it work somehow, you know. We'd have found something to do with it, but for now, because, you know, for a while, stores kept getting bigger, and guess what? Now people complain. 100,000 square feet, that's too big. I forgot my peanut butter. I'm not going all the way back there to get it. It'll take me 10 minutes to go get it. I'm not going. So, did I answer your question?
This does, I have another question.
Okay.
How has the liquor impacted your business?
Well, it's just beer and wine.
Yeah, no,
The beer's done well. It's done well from a standpoint of accommodating the customer, and we make decent profit on it. The wine, unfortunately, Tim Barner's not here, but he'd probably agree with me anyway. The state made us jump through hoops with that, and the customer has to jump through hoops to buy it. So, when I say that, we had to have a separate registry, a dedicated space that the state approved, and then the customer has to pay for it. Well, our cafe does extremely well, especially at lunchtime. So if somebody wants a 6-pack of beer and a couple bottles of wine, and they have this cart full of groceries, they have to go over and get in that line to pay for it, and if there's already a big food line there, they take the beer and the wine and they put it back. And then again, on the wine, if we sell it for the same retail as the state store, which we do, we make 3%.
It's 4%.
4%. So I hope they change some of those things. I mean, even the way we merchandise. I mean, I still like to merchandise things, and I think, you know, Super Bowl, if we could display beer somewhere with pretzels or chips or something like, we can't. It always dedicated to that space.
If I may, that was actually one of the #1 requests from the customer survey.
Oh, from the remodel? Okay.
Yeah, we had customers, then we did a follow-up survey that said they went to other stores out of other towns, because if they had an uncle or somebody coming in that they wanted to buy a 6-pack, they're so easy. That's why we did it.
You know, down in Florida, you can buy beer and wine at Dollar General.
And we're the only state.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're the only state where that law's that
I
way.
know, it's just so
Well,
easy.
again, I'll make reference to Publix. There was a manager in the one store that was terrific. I'd have hired him in a minute. And he would tell me what they were paying for turkeys and hams and what their sales were. I got real proud. We did $10,000 in beer the one week. And I said, Julie, how much are you doing beer a week? 50,000. I'm like, what?
You just throw it in the grocery
Well,
cart.
it's everywhere. Now, in all fairness, they don't have beer distributors. So you either buy your beer in a grocery store or convenience store or in one of the liquor stores. The grocery stores don't have the hard liquor. If you want whiskey or rum, vodka, you have to go to a liquor store and they have beer too.
I have to say though, Dave, when I come back from Florida, the prices of the groceries in Florida, I'm so glad to get back to County Market.
Yeah.
It's so much higher.
Yeah.
Lunch meats and, it's crazy.
Well, we're the lowest priced supermarket in western Pennsylvania.
Is that right?
And it's a larger area than that, but yeah, and that goes back to how it started.
Yeah.
Hasn't anybody get asked me why prices are so high?
We'll do that.
Yeah.
Ice cream is out of sight.
Not if you buy our store brand Stone Ridge for $2.
Colonel, whatever it's called.
Don't buy the Stone Ridge $2.50.
Well,
Seriously, it's all I buy. And it's all.
Anyway, it's
good.
three factors, okay? Number one is fuel, and it's the diesel fuel. I mean, we all look at gasoline prices, and they fluctuate a little bit. But in 2020, diesel fuel was $2.52 a gallon. Right now, it's $4.69. All of the trucks, everything that's delivered, they use diesel fuel. And then what a lot of these vendors have done over the years is they add a fuel surcharge. So you have your cost, and then at the bottom of the bill is, oh, guess what? Fuel surcharge, they add it all to it. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is electricity. 2020, electricity for commercial buildings was $10.59 a kilowatt hour. Now it's $12.74. And the last I knew, our power bill was about $20,000 a month. I don't know what it is.
We did some energy efficiency things, it's less now, but yeah, it's,
Well, the lights help with that,
Yeah.
I'm sure, with the lamp and store. And then the third thing is the labor. You don't have to look very far and read about what happened in California when they raised the minimum wage to $20 for fast food. Well, guess what? Now a lot of them are closing. So you either close or you raise your price. So that in essence, those three factors is why everything's cool. I mean, I would like to hope and think that maybe somehow some of that will change. I don't know. But again, we're committed to doing the best we can. And I mentioned about how we bought big and held the price. We still do that. We're just not buying as big as we used to. Because I had room for 11 truckloads of groceries on that racking in a sales floor. I don't know how much room we have in the back room, but maybe for 3 truckloads. And that's going 3 tiers high. Any other questions?
Just a comment, since we're a historical society, if you have any flyers, extra flyers, I mean, I know you like to keep them from that far back. It's interesting as people go around.
Okay,
And we go into the business room upstairs.
yes,
There's, Pengrove Hotel, a steak dinner 60 years ago was $3.95.
okay.
And kids, 8th graders come through here every year, and the 3rd graders.
I'm glad you
And-
asked. We
And when
definitely
they,
do
yeah,
that.
when they see something, they said, no, that's not real. So if you have any, extra ones.
Yep.
I can remember when I started at Thoroughfare, and we'd have 10-cent sales.
Yeah.
Canned goods were 10 cents. And we built these silly displays, we had these round platforms. And we just run around with them like that. If somebody pulled one out of the middle and you built it right, it wouldn't fall. But if you didn't build it right, it wouldn't fall over.
And you mentioned the milk boxes, we have them in the business room, Campbell's Dairy.
Okay, what, Campbell's, okay.
Campbell's Dairy was one of them.
Young and scary.
Yeah.
Well, again, there were so many.
Yeah.
Bell Farm,
Yeah.
Seal Test Auto, Carl Calderon, I can't remember all of them. We're lucky that the dairy that I've bought from since 1976 when I had my super dollar, United Dairy in Martins Ferry, Ohio. We're their biggest customer, and they're still in business, thank goodness.
you know, they buy from a large amount of farms in our area.
Yes, good point.
You know,
Yeah.
And it's hormone steroid free, as far as I know.
yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have another question. As you can see, as my wife says, I think a lot about my stomach. What about buying local, do you have a program like that? You had steaks there for a while, grass-fed steaks.
We still do.
Yep.
But do you, do you look for places around here
Absolutely.
that you can buy?
A lot of produce, we buy as much local produce as we can, and you mentioned their grass-fed beef.
We still have that. Yeah, we still have a local beef that we get every week. We have cutters that grocery stores don't anymore, and they can take a side of beef and bring it down, so we do that. We have a local beef section in our case. It's dry aged and grass-fed, grain-finished, no hormones, no antibiotics, none of that. Yeah, and then, yeah, we buy honey, syrup.
Yes, maple syrup, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, we have a huge second, local wines. Yeah, local wines get a lot, but there's just, throughout the store, there's a huge focus on that. And anybody, any producer or anything, we're always happy to partner with them. Yeah, so that all started when organic started, and I was talking to a customer, and it was in the 90s, and she was like, can I help you? And she's like, your organic stuff sucks. And I said, I don't disagree. Well, what, could you help me with that? Any thoughts? And she was like, well, I'm a farmer, and you can buy local, and we don't, it's organic, but it's not labeled. And I was like, okay. And I said, well, I'd love to. And she's like, tell you what, and we exchanged numbers, and she invited me to a meeting, and I thought I was just gonna sit there, but it turns out I was the host of the meeting, and it was all farmers. And we started a huge program with local farmers back then, and the local farmers don't use a lot of that junk. And so we still have organics, because labeled, but a lot of stuff we buy, you can't label it, because you have to pay to get certified as organic, and it's a lot of money, and that means that product has to be more expensive. So yeah, what we buy as much as possible local, always a big focus.
I didn't bring you anything to eat today, I apologize, the grocery store always supplies something to eat. I brought pens, help yourself. Every time you use it, you can think about cutting more.
You did, thanks so much. And we do have refreshments, punch and homemade cookies, although all the ingredients came from County Road.